Coaching Soccer Weekly, episode 325 Building Out of the Back and the Offside Rule. Entertaining, educational, and inspiring soccer content to help make you a more effective coach, player, or soccer parent. Hello, and welcome back to Coaching Soccer Weekly, presented by World Class Coaching. My name is Sergej Verbinovich, and this is the podcast devoted to bringing you cutting-edge methods, techniques, and tactics for coaching soccer. It doesn't matter if you're an experienced coach who has been training teams for many years, or if you're new to coaching and working with a team for the very first time. There's something we can all do to take our coaching to the next level. It was really great to be back out on the field, coaching in a competitive game atmosphere. I got to be honest, I was really nervous going into my first weekend of games because this is a brand new league that we've never been a part of. We're facing teams that I've heard of but have never really played. So all I could have really gone on was the team's reputation. And a lot of these teams and clubs are really famous simply because they've been around for a very long time. So, or I've coached against them way back when, or I was even a part of some of these clubs that we're facing. So I was really nervous. I didn't know what the competition level was going to be like, and that's why we got into Tier 2. It just so happened that our first game was against a team that I've never heard of, which always makes me even more nervous. And when I got to the field, we set up and everything, and the other coach came. We were home for the first 3 games, and I'm only really coaching this season the home games, and my other coaches are coaching the away teams. I can talk a little bit about that a little bit later on and why I'm doing that. But for me, I went in, we set up. Coach came, started talking to him because I've never heard of this club before, and apparently they've been around for a long time, but they wrote down Tier 2 instead of Tier 1. So hearing that at your first game with a 2013 team that half the players have never played a competitive game before, it's not really something that you want to hear. But I thought they did really well, especially because it was their first game. So did we really keep possession that much? I would say no, but I do think we were the better team. We ended up losing, I think, 3-1 that game. But again, better team. All the goals that were scored on us, same as last season, were breakaways from the other team. So they didn't really do that much. So I was really impressed. And this 2013 team is a really big team. We have 13 players, and to be honest, I really don't like that. So going into next season, I'll probably split them up. And I only have one 2014, which I also don't really like because I like to have a split of at least 4 or 5 players from a year younger playing up in that first U9 age group. We don't do under 8s simply because it's festival format, and I'd rather them train and play with the U9s if they can. So we don't really do U8s. I don't love the 5v5 format. It's just not, I don't know. Maybe we'll do it in later years, but as of right now, our first teams start at U9. So I really like to have that 2014 play up so that next year, half of the new team has played in a competitive environment before. And that's really what happened in that 2013 game. We had, I want to say, 5 or 6 players on the team that were part of that 2012 indoor indoor season, sorry. So what I did was, because we had so many players, I split it up into 2 groups, and each group had 2 or 3 players that had played before. So out of the 7 players on the field, 2 or 3 had already played previously. So instead of having one group that would go on, and we did our subs every 5 minutes with just all of our, if you want to call it, veteran players, I divided them, and that kind of gave me a balance. And again, I thought we did really well for our first game. There were some players that really surprised me from the new players that have never played before. So it was a really good experience, I think, for them to get in and play a really decent team from what I saw. They had some really good players. Their shots were really great. They were just hard shots. Our goalies did really well. But again, the goals that we got scored on were really just goals in transition. So it's, again, when you're a possession-based team or you're trying to play possession and play in the other team's half, that's something dangerous that you're always going to encounter. And it's a theme throughout all of our teams that we get caught on the counter. And with the older teams, that's happening less and less because we've addressed that with the safety that I've spoken about, and they're starting to understand that and really keeping players back so that we don't get beat in the transition and in the counterattacks. So that was our first game, lost 3-1, and then we played our second game was our 2010 gold team, which was our A team. Then after that was our 2010 black team, which is made mostly from 2011 players playing up. So next was our 2010 gold team, and I thought we started the game really well. And then our center midfielder, who's fantastic, she got hurt and came off, and we just didn't look the same after that. On top of that, we couldn't build out of the back. We just couldn't get out of there. There were moments where I just told the goalie to kick it up, and that didn't work, and it was just nothing worked. And in the moment, I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't figure out what we were doing wrong because we've had success in the 7v7 game. We've had a lot of success with building out of the back to the point where I thought they've mastered it. And now, sitting at the game, just not understanding what was going on. I couldn't figure it out. The other team was pressing. They were picking us up man-to-man from building out of the back, and it just wasn't working. So couldn't really figure it out until yesterday, which I was able to because of Vio. And that brings us actually to today's sponsor, Vio. Now, in the moment, I was so focused on the game and wasn't able to have that bird's eye view of what was going on to see what the issue was. And then within probably 2 minutes of just reviewing the VO footage and pausing it at the moment of building out of the back, it was obvious what the problem was. And the problem was tactical. It was my issue that I had in building out of the back. The way that I had it was I just didn't consider a very basic principle, which I had considered with my 7v7, my 5v5. And the basic principle was essentially whichever third that you have the ball, you want to create width. And I didn't do that. If you think about my shape of the 4-3-1, the way that I had my players line up was in a 2-3-3. So it would be my two defenders in the center space, my two fullbacks in line with my center defensive mid. So it's a 2-3, but those fullbacks are in the half space. And then way up ahead of them were my wingers, which are attacking mids turned into wingers, and then my center forward. So my attacking midfielders that have turned into wingers are in the wide space, and my striker is in the center space. So I created a 2-3-3. And the issue was that my fullbacks weren't giving themselves enough time by going into the wide space, which was my fault, right? I told them to go into the half space. So as soon as I was able to watch the VO footage, I was able to see that there was so much space behind them. Space equals time, which means there was so much time that we left on the table behind them. That was obviously the first issue. And then the second issue was the principle of space, which we talk about, which is that you start where you want the space to be. Then you leave that space by making a run out of that space, and then you come back to receive that ball. So we weren't making any runs at all. When the defender receives the ball from the goalkeeper, that's when we should be moving off the ball to create space for ourselves. So my players didn't do any of that. That was the one part that, they should have been doing, but the tactical part was my fault. So what we're going to be working on this week is the transitional element of getting big, getting small, and then building out of the back, and how to do that the right way, along with learning how to do throw-ins and offsides. So when I was at the game, the other coach said, we're playing with offsides and throw-ins, and I said, that's not right. And apparently I was wrong. I spoke to the league, the head of the league yesterday, and he confirmed that there are throw-ins and there are offsides at U12. I just figured that this is what we did in the district that I was in, that at U12 there was no offsides and it was still dribbling. So yesterday on the call, we went over what offsides are. We went over a little bit what throw-ins are, and we're going to do more of that in the training session. But I will explain later on how I'm going to explain offsides to my players. It's really simple. And then how I'm going to do throw-ins with our session as well. I also showed a quick video of how we want to take our throw-ins, what we want the players to do off the ball. But it's the same principle. You start in the space that you want to receive the ball, and that lets everyone know where you want it. Then you leave that space and drag that defender away, and then at a moment's notice, without even paying attention, you start your run early, which gives you a second head start over your defender into that space, and that's where you should receive that ball. So that's what we're also going to do with our building out of the back. And with that building out of the back, it's going to look a little bit different. It's going to be still the 2-3-3, but my two are going to go into the half space. My two defenders are going to go into the half space. My two fullbacks are now going to go into the wide space. My center defensive mid is going to start in the center space. My two attacking mids are going to start in the half space. So they're in line with the defenders. And then my forward is going to be in the center space. When that ball goes to my defender, or as it's going to that defender, my fullbacks are going to support and go in line with my defender, creating a 3 in the back. And this is only on the strong side. So it's a one defender in one half space, the other defender in the other half space, and then the fullback dropping in to the wide space. Now, if the defender that is marking them is not there, then they receive the ball. Everybody shifts now one half space to the strong side. That'll give us safety in case our fullback loses the ball. They go 1v1, or when they receive that ball, the center defensive mid drops into the half space, and we go give and go down to the line. My instructions to the fullback and the attacking mid are really simple. If my fullback is in the half space, my attacking mid is in the wide space, and vice versa. So we want on the wings from half space to wide space, we want those two players to always be moving and not be in the same half space, because that allows for more passing angles. And the more passing angles you have, the more challenging it is for the opponent to keep track of cutting off passing lanes, right? So we want those players in different positions, one in the half space, one in the wide space. So that's how I'm going to be doing that. And then I'm going to go back to what I did in the past. We go from our goalkeeper and we get to half with it. And just like we've been doing the opposite version of that, which is being in their half and just playing with half spaces, wide spaces, and center spaces, we're now going to start building out of the back and getting pressed and all that in our sessions. So I'm just going to have one half and then build out of the back from that. and just until the players understand that role. And obviously, with this, the four basics of rondos are the elements that are used here. So, furthest foot, support, advice, and losing your defender, right? So, those are the concepts that we're going to be talking about within building out of the back. So that was all 2010. And again, I talk about this every week because they're our sponsor, but they really are the best. VO, without VO, I wouldn't have been able to figure this out. There was also a point in the game where I saw why building out of the back also didn't work was because our wingers were again being man marked. And as a result, there was a huge gap between the midfield line and our forward line. And what I'm looking for now is for our attacking mids to drop into that space in between their midfield and defensive line to receive that ball as well. So now when either the defender has the ball or the fullback has the ball, we have a lot more options, different passing angles, and it should allow the players to find another solution to get out of the back. So again, with VO, it makes it so much easier. And this is the same thing that I do when I watch Manchester City on DAZN, right? I watch the game, and then when we analyze it, you have to pause it because it's so tough to see these things in real time. If you're looking for VO and get that with your academy, use code CSW. It's Coaching Soccer Weekly, 100 off. So code CSW 100 to get your discount. So, yeah, that was our 2010 game. The team that we played against, they were very frustrating to play against because they were able to keep the ball and keep possession, and they were able to do what we do, which is keeping that possession for, I think, the end of the game. When our center midfielder came back, she just really ties everyone together and is really good at being the bridge between all positions. Whenever she was on the field, we were suddenly able to keep possession. And as soon as she was off the field, because she went on and she was limping, and she was kind of like, no, I can't. And she's just an absolute warrior. So she came on, great. As soon as she came off, we were struggling. So the other team they were a good team. Couldn't finish. They had so many chances. I think they beat us maybe 4-1 or 3-1, something like that. And then our black team, our 2010 black team, played. And we played against historically one of the teams that I was very nervous to play against. We played their B team. And the 2011s absolutely crushed it. We kept possession of the ball. We played really well. And a lot of those were 2011. That team is mostly 2011 players. Our goalkeeper had a fantastic save. It was fully stretched, diving save. I think it might have even been off a breakaway. It was just an incredible, incredible save. But we dominated the game. We played possession. We moved the ball really well from side to side. And we ended up we were short 2 players. So we had 2 players, one of the siblings of the 2011s actually play up. So just a really great game. And unfortunately, I didn't record it, ran out of battery. But we ended up winning that game 3-1 or 3-2, something like that. And very proud of that black team. Next week, it's going to be the opposite. So the black team is going to play that team, the first team that we played, and then the gold team is going to be playing against the second team that we played. So they just kind of alternate, I guess, this weekend. It should be a really good experience for the gold team. And that team is what I really wanted to play against, those types of teams, because I wanted to keep possession. So I wanted to play weaker teams so that we can really understand the tactics going into the indoor season. So I'm really excited for the gold team to play against that team. And then the black team is going to have a really challenging game because the first team that we played were big, strong players. And the second team that we played, they were a lot shorter. The other thing that I noticed with VO as well is that our pressing wasn't good. So with my session this week, when we're building out of the back, that's something else that we're going to work on. So I just kind of wanted to introduce both of those things, the building out of the back and the pressing that we had issues with. And then I'll talk about what I'm doing in a combination session that's probably very well known, but I'm tweaking it again to get what I want out of it. So just wanted to introduce those two things. And now I'll talk about offsides, throw ins, and then we'll get into the building out of the back and pressing session that I have for our players. So for offsides, let's talk about how to explain it to the players. I'm a very visual learner. So we did this yesterday. I used my computer. I used what's it called, the coaching application that I use, which is Academy Sports Coach. If you want to get that, it's ASSCCLOUD.com. So if you're interested in that, that's just what I use to do all my tactics and plan all my sessions and all that. So anyway, so what I did was I opened that up and I got one of the presets, which is just a blank field. I put in the goalkeeper, the other team's goalkeeper, and one defender. Then I put in one of our attackers. So in total, there were 3 players on the field. Then I started at the baseline, which is their goal line. And I said, when we are the 3rd player from their goal line, we're okay. We are not in an offside position. However, as soon as we are the 2nd player, we are offside. So if it's their last player, which is usually their goalkeeper, and then it's us, then that's an offside position. But if it's their last player, which is usually a goalkeeper, and a defender, and then us, then we're okay. And that's how I explained offsides. That's it. Super simple. Now, the reason that I say most times it's a goalkeeper, because sometimes it's not. On TV, you will see in the last minute or two, the goalkeeper will run up maybe to take that corner. So if that goalkeeper runs up and they have one defender back and then it's you are offside. You are technically offside. It has to be 2 players, then you. So that's the offside rule. That's how I explained it. I'm going to explain it again during the session when I have just about all the players there. And then we'll talk about throw-ins. So with throw-ins, what I'm essentially going to do is I'm going to have 3 players together. They're going to be in a small box. And essentially, I want them to start in one spot, run away, and then come in to receive that ball. So take that defender away, come in, receive that ball, and then probably one touch back to the thrower because no one usually picks up the thrower. So the thrower will have that. Then we'll have a 2-on-1, and then we can work that way. So we're going to be working that. I'm going to get each player to have, I think, 5 or 6 repetitions of the actual throw-ins, and then they'll rotate. So we'll do that for about 15, 20 minutes just so they can understand the rules of throw-ins. Then I'll have all the coaches go around teaching them, making sure that, their leg isn't off the ground, that they're letting go at the proper time, and just kind of giving more advice to the players that way. So let's talk about the session that I'm going to run on Wednesday, which will have an element of teaching the players 2 things. One is the new tactical way to build out of the back, and 2, how to press as a team. So let's talk about what this looks like. So we're going to have a box that's about 30 by 30. Essentially, what I'm trying to get out of this box, and the reason it's 30 by 30, is I want to be able to divide it by 2, so 15 yards for each player. And instead of yards, we can talk about steps, because for me, obviously, when you're actually setting it up, you're not really going to have a ruler or anything to measure by, right? So it's always funny to me, by the way, when I'm looking at coaching plans and it says, 10 yards by this yards. And I think as coaches, we all know we're really not measuring. So I measure by steps. So it's about 30 steps for me. And again, the reason it's that is because I want 15 steps for each of my players. Okay, so that's what you have to think about. Now, the idea is that outside the box is the wide space. So to get the half space and one center space, we're going to divide this box from north to south into 3 rectangles. Okay, so you can just kind of do that. So I would say about 5 yards in from the end of the box, you make 2 lines on each side. So then you have outside the box is the wide space. Inside that box in that first rectangle is the half space, then center space, then half space, and then that wide space there. So now we've created where we're going to play for the players. So now let's talk about what this actually looks like. The name of the game is 4v4 plus 4. So it's 4 against 4 plus 4 neutrals. So let's break this down. We have 4 against 4 on the east and west side. So on the outside, let's say we have the red team. We have 4 players, 2 on each side, which are the fullbacks and the attacking mids, against the black team, which are inside the box in their small shape. So that's how you get the 4v4. And then the plus 4 are the 2 defenders on the south side, center defender, and then, center defensive midfield in the middle, and then the striker up top. So 4v4 on the outside, plus 4 neutrals in the middle. So that's kind of the overall shape. The other thing you can do to help your players is you can create a line going east to west that divides the square in half. Okay. And what that's going to do is that's going to allow your players a little bit more, to make this a little bit easier to understand when they should be in the half space, when they should be in the wide space. Okay. So let's say the 2 defenders have that ball. We're talking now about the fullbacks being in the wide space. Because the fullbacks are in the wide space, the attacking midfielders are going to be in the half space. And because that ball is within our defenders or in our half of this game, that's going to be a signal for these players to stay, for the fullbacks to stay wide, for the attacking mids to stay big. So now what we want to do is we want them to understand that when the ball now goes to the attacking midfielders or the forwards in the next square, right, the more north square, that now the fullbacks shift into the half space and the attacking mids shift into the wide space. So I really want them to understand that movement, that when the ball is within their line of players, so if the ball is within the forward line or the midfield line or the defensive line, it's going to give them a better idea of where they should be. If the defense has it, fullbacks wide, attacking mids into the half space. If the center defensive mid has it, then again, we keep that shape the way it is. As soon as now we get that ball to the other half, and we can do that by getting the ball to the fullbacks make a pass down the line, which then forces the attacking mids to go into the wide space. And then as soon as the attacking mids go into the wide space, that's when the fullbacks tuck in into that half space. Let's talk about defending. Again, I'm going to split this up south side and north side to make it more simple. When the defenders have it, everyone should be on the north side of the field. They should be small, okay? Because we don't want them to go through the middle. We want to force them wide. So we want to give them that option to go wide. We should be all in the half space, and we should be together in a shape of 2-2. 2 players that are closer to the north side, 2 players that are obviously closer to the south side. When that ball is passed to the east side fullback on the red team, then everyone shifts 1 half space towards the strong side. The strong side south player is going to press the ball. The weak side south player is going to get on the defensive mid. The strong side north player is going to pick up the red player on the north side. And then the weak side North player is going to shift in, cut off the passing lane to get that ball across to the north side, northeast, sorry, uh, red player, and also the forward. The last thing that we don't have here that we could add is a fifth player. And that fifth player, their job will be to cut off the passing lane back to the defenders so that they can't go backwards. But that's not really something that we're going to be doing right now. So that's how we're going to press. We're going to move as a team. We're going to make sure that we keep kind of this diamond shape of the two weak side players supporting and kind of creating this diamond and then shifting from side to side. And that's really what we're going to work on. So with the magic of recording, I recorded the first part of this episode on Tuesday, and then yesterday I ran the training, and now I want to kind of give you my report as to how it went. So I did this with the older kids, as I mentioned I was going to, and the numbers didn't work out at all. I just didn't have the necessary numbers to run a 4v4 plus 4, which would mean that I would need 24 players, or I would need 19 because we have 3 coaches with us. So we can play. So it would have worked out, but just didn't have the numbers. So what I ended up doing instead was I ended up doing the 4v4 plus 2 and having the 2 players on each end, the 2 neutral players. And what that forced the players to do was really work on that supporting skill of losing your defender by first creating the space by moving back in line and then attacking. And I did create that middle line, which really showed the players where to go from half space and wide space point of view in relation to where the ball was. And then we played in the scrimmage at the end, and it really helped, I thought. So overall, I would call that a success. I think the most important part of that was to really get us to understand the building out of the back and how we're going to use this new system. Now, I'll be honest, the pressing wasn't so great. That's something that we really still have to work on. The whole defensive structure of every team in the academy isn't that great. Honestly, though, if I can reflect on that, I would say that's pretty expected. We're a very possession-based team, so we want to have possession most of the time. So it's tough when we're really working on not having possession. The players are just so used to keeping possession and holding the ball. And with our 2012s, from what I'm told, they had possession 90% of the game. I wasn't there that week. I will be there this week. But they had possession most of that game. So we really have to shift our defensive structure, I think, to thinking about defending while attacking. And that's what we talk about with our safety and just kind of having the weak side player go back. Having said that, though, we're not going to be a possession-based team against every team that we play on. So it's really good to still be prepared and do these types of things while we're still working on our attacking structure and our keeping possession style of play and our tactics from that. So I'm going to continue the 4v4 plus 4 and just find different versions of that based on the number of players I have. The variation is going to be with the number of neutrals. So for me, I'm still going to work on pressing as well, just to keep that in the player's mind of how we press as a team as soon as we lose that ball, because I think that's really important. And in that transitional moment of just trying to stay compact when we don't have the ball and really try and force the players, the other team, wide. And then once they're wide, then we can really start to attack the attacking team and try and win that ball. And then in that transitional moment, can we really focus on getting it back right away, getting it to the neutral, and then getting big? This weekend is going to be really interesting. I'm a little bit nervous to see what's going to happen. We have 4 games this weekend. Our 2013s are playing a club that we've played before and is actually in our district. It's the club with the hockey team. So for the 2012s that I've kind of talked about before, but this is 2013. So this is a completely different team, completely different coach, completely different players. So I really want to see what they're up to in that 2013 age group. Our 2012s are going to be playing a traditionally really good club that I know of. I've never seen them play games. I've seen them train in indoor just as I was walking by. They end up using the facility that we use for our game. So I saw their training and they looked pretty good. Now, I don't know if this is the same team. This could be a B version of that. So I have no idea what to expect, to be honest. But our 2012, the one thing that I know about them is that they will show up and they will fight, and they're a very good team. So it's going to be a battle. I think this whole 2012 Tier 2 is going to be a consistent battle. I don't think there are any bad teams in this division. I think a lot of the teams here really had the same mindset as me, that they were going to go into Tier 2, just really work on keeping possession and just really dominating the game. So I think it's going to be a tough game. Our 2010s are going to flip the teams that they played last week. So our 2010 black team, which is our B team, are playing the team that we lost to 3-1. That's going to be a really tough game for them. That team is huge. Like, they are just really big, strong players. So it's going to be a tough game for the black team. And then the gold team, they're going to have an easier time playing against kind of a small team that the black team played against and beat. So it's going to be a really interesting weekend. We're also, for the 2010s, they're calling it a community weekend for the 2010 age group, which means that all of the 2010s are going to be in one place playing together on, I think there's like 4 or 5 fields. So it's going to be like a community, I don't know what you would call it, but they're essentially trying to bring the community together and have everyone in one place to kind of show off the TSA, the Toronto Soccer Association, which is who we're a part of, the district that we're a part of this this outdoor season. So it's going to be interesting. I'm really excited to see that part of it. I'll probably be able to come a little bit early, watch some more games, and just kind of get a good feeling about how the TSA works. In general, we've only played one weekend of games, so I don't really know a lot about the TSA. So hopefully things will go well. There's a community weekend for every age group. So we'll see how this one goes. This is, I think, the very first one, unless there was one last week with a different age that we just don't have. But I think this will be the very first one for the TSA. So I'm excited to report back with that. Thanks for listening to another episode of Coaching Soccer Weekly. I'm really enjoying the new 9v9 format that I'm coaching. I've never really done it before. I've coached and played, obviously, 11v11, but never really 9v9. So I really like the new challenges that are coming with the additional 2 players going from 7v7 to 9v9. And I'm excited to continue my tactical journey in this 9v9 world. I'll continue to share with you all the changes that I'm making and just kind of what I'm feeling about how we're doing as a team, as 2 teams actually, for the 2010 age group. I want to take some time to thank you, the listeners. You guys are amazing. Thank you for supporting the show. And I want to thank our sponsor, VO. And if you're looking for the VO equipment, CSW 100, and it'll be in the show notes. But until next week.
Hey, thanks for watching all the way to the end. And you can check out more of our videos right here. And if you haven't done so already, I would really appreciate it if you'd hit the like button and the subscribe button.